Imagine moving into your dream home, only to realize it's not just the walls that are haunted. A Nigerian family in the heart of Salem, Massachusetts, steps into a house with a dark past, one that reaches out from the shadows, whispers in the night, and twists a father's lies into terrifying truths. Can they uncover the secrets buried within before it's too late? In this chilling Halloween-themed tale, follow Amina, a 13-year-old girl, as she unravels a terrifying mystery in her family's new mansion. Betrayal, supernatural justice, and family strength take center stage as Amina confronts the ghosts of the past and the betrayal of the one person she trusted most. Get ready for a suspense-filled journey, with every twist leading to a shocking revelation that will leave you questioning everything. Will they survive the curse that never lets go? The crisp autumn air greeted the family as they stepped out of the car, the vibrant red and orange leaves swirling in the wind. Amina adjusted her scarf, feeling both nervous and excited. After months of preparation, they had finally arrived in Salem, Massachusetts, a town known for its history and its Halloween spirit. The city was alive with the excitement of the upcoming celebration. Every house, every shop, was adorned with pumpkins, skeletons, and cobwebs, setting the perfect spooky atmosphere. "This is it, Amina," her father, Papa Kalechi, said, his deep voice filled with pride. "Our new beginning." Amina forced a smile, trying to mask the unease that had settled in her stomach. The house loomed ahead, a large, dilapidated mansion at the edge of town. Its faded paint and overgrown garden gave it an air of mystery, almost as if it had been waiting for them. It was a deal they couldn't refuse, a bargain price for rent, far below what any other house in the area would cost. Mr. Carter, the elderly landlord, had been more than eager to show them around when they first arrived. "It's old," he had warned, "but it has character, and a rich history, too." Amina's mother, Mama Ifioma, had been skeptical from the start, but Papa Kalechi insisted it would be a perfect place for them to settle in while they found their feet in the new country. Amina, always a practical one, didn't quite believe it, but her father had assured her it was the best they could afford. Now, standing in front of it, she couldn't help but feel a chill creeping up her spine. The house, with its cracked windows and towering shadows, seemed to stare back at them, almost as if it was alive. "Well," Amina said, forcing a cheerful tone, "let's see what's inside." They made their way inside, where the air was musty and thick with the scent of old wood. The floors creaked beneath their feet, and every step seemed to echo in the silence. The hallway was lined with antique furniture, cobwebs hanging from the chandeliers. The house was beautiful in its own way, but it was also unsettling. "This place is huge." Chima, her younger brother, exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. He had always been the adventurous one, eager to explore. "It's too big for us," Amina replied, her voice tinged with worry. "This house, something doesn't feel right." Just then, they heard a faint creak from upstairs. Mama Ifioma, looking concerned, called out to Papa Kalechi, who was busy examining the living room. "You didn't tell us it would be this quiet," she said, her voice a little shaky. "It's just an old house, Mama," Papa Kalechi replied with a smile, though there was an unspoken tension in his voice. "It's fine. We're just settling in." But Amina couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something about the house didn't feel like it was welcoming them. It felt like it was waiting for them. As they began unpacking, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched across the rooms. Amina's mind kept drifting back to the warning Mr. Carter had given them. The house had a past, a history steeped in mystery. He hadn't said much about it, but there were whispers that the house had been home to many tenants before, most of whom had disappeared without a trace. But it was just a story, wasn't it? Amina shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. This was a fresh start for their family. Still, as she looked around the darkening rooms, she couldn't ignore the eerie feeling that clung to the walls. Something was here, something ancient and perhaps angry. The first few days in the house were uneventful, but Amina couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The silence was deafening. Unlike the bustling, vibrant neighborhood she had imagined, the town felt still, frozen in time, as though the world outside the mansion didn't exist. Amina had hoped the house's eerie vibe would pass, that perhaps it was just the newness of the place, or her own imagination playing tricks on her. But the unsettling feelings lingered. Every night, as darkness swallowed the house, strange sound began to echo through the walls, soft whispers that seemed to call her name. It was on the fourth night that she first heard it clearly. She was sitting at the kitchen table, sketching in her notebook. The wind had picked up outside, rattling the old windows, and for a moment, she thought the sound was just the house settling. But then it came again. Amina! The voice was faint, almost a whisper, but clear enough to make her skin prickle. She looked up, her heart thudding in her chest. The room was empty. The kitchen light flickered. She shook her head, trying to convince herself it was just her mind playing tricks. Amina? It came again, louder this time. Frozen, she stood up and moved toward the doorway, glancing nervously down the dark hallway. Her breath quickened as her eyes darted around, searching for the source of sound. But nothing was there. She turned back toward the kitchen, her footsteps quiet against the worn floorboards. Her heart pounded. Was someone else in the house? She called out, her voice trembling slightly. Chima? Mama Ifioma? No answer. The silence seemed to deepen, pressing in on her. Suddenly, a light flickered from upstairs. It was coming from the attic, a faint glow seeping through the crack beneath the door. Amina swallowed hard. The attic had always felt wrong. There was something about that door, the way it never seemed to stay closed, like someone was trying to get out. She didn't want to go up there, not at this hour, but the pull of curiosity was too strong. Grabbing the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, she ascended the stairs slowly, the beam of light cutting through the darkness in front of her. The door to the attic was slightly ajar. Her pulse quickened as she pushed it open, the hinges creaking loudly. The air inside the attic was cold, musty, and thick with dust. Old furniture and boxes were stacked haphazardly, but there, in the far corner, sat a small wooden chest, old, covered in scratches, and just out of place. Amina stepped closer, the beam of the flashlight shaking in her hand. The chest was locked, but it looked like it had been tampered with recently. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols she didn't recognize. Her fingers hovered over the lock, her curiosity overpowering her fear. Suddenly, she heard the whisper again, but this time it was different. It was urgent, desperate. Help me? The voice seemed to echo through the room, making the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. Amina stumbled backward, her heart racing. She dropped the flashlight, which clattered to the floor, casting eerie shadows across the attic. Her breath was shallow as she backed away, her mind racing. That voice! There was no mistaking it. It had come from inside the chest. In a panic, she turned and bolted down the stairs, almost tripping as she reached the bottom. She didn't stop running until she was back in the living room, breathless, hands shaking. When she looked up, her father was standing there, watching her. What's wrong, Amina? Papa Kelechi asked, his voice calm, but his eyes unreadable. Amina opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She wanted to tell him about the whispers, the chest, the voice that had begged for help, but something told her not to. Something told her that whatever was happening in this house, her father knew more about it than he was letting on. Instead, she simply shook her head. I thought I heard something upstairs. Papa Kelechi nodded, his expression softening. This house is old, Amina. It plays tricks on the mind. You'll get used to it. But Amina wasn't so sure. As her father turned and walked away, she felt a growing unease. She had always trusted him, but now, with every step he took, the shadow of doubt grew larger. The house had secrets, and Amina was starting to believe that her father was hiding something about the mansion's dark history. The days blurred together as Amina tried to focus on the routines of settling into their new life. She spent her time unpacking, helping Mama Ifioma with the chores, and tried to ignore the constant feeling that something wasn't right in the house. But the whispers, though faint, were still there, lingering in the corners of her mind, just out of reach. On the evening of the seventh day, after another long, quiet day of unpacking, Amina found herself alone in the attic again. She wasn't sure why she kept returning to that place. Maybe it was a mysterious chest, or the strange feeling that it was calling to her. But tonight, something pushed her to go back. The attic was even colder than usual, and the air felt heavier. She grabbed the flashlight again, this time determined to find out what was hidden in the chest. Her heart thudded in her chest as she approached it, her hands trembling slightly. It was then that she noticed something new. The floorboards near the chest were disturbed, scratched, as though someone had been there recently. It made her blood run cold. She hadn't touched it since the night she saw the symbols, yet it felt as if the house was silently pushing her to open it. With a deep breath, she kneeled beside the chest and reached for the lock. To her surprise, it was unlocked, just as if it had been waiting for her to find it. Her fingers lingered on the clasp, her pulse racing. Slowly, she lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in a tattered cloth, was an old leather-bound diary. The edges were frayed, the pages yellow with age. Amina felt a shiver run through her as she opened it. The handwriting was neat but shaky, and the ink was faded. It took her a moment to focus, but once she did, she read the first line aloud to herself. I am trapped here, unable to escape the evil that lurks within these walls. My only hope is to write it all down before it consumes me. Amina's heart skipped a beat. The words seemed to leap off the page, as though they were meant for her to find. She continued reading, her eyes scanning the pages quickly. The entries were dated, each one more disturbing than the last. The diary belonged to a woman named Clara Hawthorne, the former occupant of the house. As Amina read, the story began to unfold. Clara had moved into the mansion with her husband, a wealthy businessman named Edward Hawthorne. The couple had been well respected in Salem, but their marriage was troubled, strained by Edward's infidelities and his secret meetings with an unknown woman. Clara had suspected something was off, but it wasn't until she found out the truth that things took a darker turn. One particular entry caught Amina's attention. I overheard Edward speaking to someone last night. He's been meeting with the landlord, Mr. Carter. They've been making plans, and I fear it's not just about the house. There's something in this place, something evil. I don't think I'm meant to be here anymore. Amina froze. The mention of Mr. Carter sent a wave of unease through her. She had met him only briefly when they moved in, but something about his sharp eyes and the way he'd avoided certain questions had always fell off. Was he part of the house's dark history? Was he involved in the strange happenings? Clara's entries grew more frantic with each passing day, her paranoia escalating. She wrote about hearing voices in the night, feeling the presence of something sinister in the house. She described a strange coldness that seemed to seep from the walls, a cold that chilled her to the bone. And then one entry, dated just a few days before the last entry, caught Amina's breath. I've seen him. The spirit. It follows me everywhere. I've tried to leave, but something won't let me. Edward is hiding something, but I can't prove it. I fear I'm going mad. I hear the whispers in the walls. They're telling me to stay. They want me to stay here forever. The last page was a messy scrawl, almost unreadable, as if Clara had been rushed. It simply said, He's here. He's watching me. He's going to kill me. Edward knows. Amina slammed the book shut, her hands trembling. The air in the attic had suddenly grown colder, and she could swear she felt eyes on her. The wall seemed to close in, and for a moment, she thought she saw something, just a flicker out of the corner of her eye. She turned to leave, but something stopped her. A voice, faint but clear, whispered through the air, the words chilling her to the core. Help me? Amina's heart pounded as she looked around, but there was no one in the attic with her. She stumbled toward the door, the diary clutched tightly in her hand. As she descended the stairs, she realized one horrible truth. Clara's fate wasn't over. It was happening again. The following morning, Amina's mind was heavy with what she had discovered in the attic. The diary was a weight in her hands, a link to a past she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Clara Hawthorne's desperate final words echoed in her mind, and a cold dread settled deep within her. She couldn't just ignore it. She had to know the truth. After breakfast, Amina decided to confront her father. He was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping his coffee, as if everything was normal. He didn't seem to notice the storm brewing. inside her. "Papa," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to ask you about something." Papa Kelechi looked up, his brow furrowing slightly as he noticed the seriousness in her eyes. "What's wrong, Amina?" I I found something in the attic," she began, her throat tightening. "A diary. It belonged to a woman who lived here before us. Her name was Clara Hawthorne. She wrote about strange things happening in this house. Voices, whispers, coldness. And she said she overheard you meeting with Mr. Carter." Papa Kelechi's face instantly stiffened. His eyes darted away from hers, his fingers tightening around his coffee cup. Amina noticed how his calm exterior cracked, just for a moment, but that moment was enough to confirm her suspicions. "Amina, He started, but his voice trailed off. He looked guilty, as if he'd been caught in something he didn't want to face. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Amina pressed, her voice more insistent now. "Why didn't you tell us the house had a past? That Clara—" "Amina," her father interrupted, his voice firmer now, though still tinged with uncertainty. "I told you that this house was old, but I didn't want to scare you. It's just a house with a history. The past doesn't matter now. What matters is that we have a chance at a new life here. Don't go digging into things that don't concern us." Amina's heart sank. She had never seen her father so defensive, so closed off. She could feel the lie hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. "But it does concern us, Papa," Amina insisted. "The whispers, the cold, they're still here. Clara's spirit is still trapped in this house. I felt it last night. I heard it." Her father's eyes hardened, and for a split second, Amina thought she saw fear in them. But it quickly faded, replaced by anger. "Enough, Amina," he said sharply, his voice low and warning. "I don't want to hear any more about this. We are not going to live in fear. You're just letting your imagination run wild." Amina's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to argue more, to tell him everything she had learned about Clara's fate, but she knew it would get her nowhere. Her father was hiding something. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach. But for some reason, he refused to talk about it. With a frustrated sigh, she turned and left the kitchen, clutching the diary tightly in her hands. There was no way she could drop it now, not after everything Clara had written. She needed answers. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Amina couldn't stop thinking about what her father had said, or rather, what he hadn't said. He'd been lying, but why? What was his connection to Mr. Carter? And why was he so adamant that she not explore the history of the house? That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and Halloween festivities began in town, Amina couldn't take it anymore. She needed to confront Mr. Carter. She hadn't seen him since the day they moved in, but the whispers from Clara's diary made her believe he was more involved in the house's history than he let on. The old man had seemed too eager to rent the house to them, and something about his too sweet demeanor rubbed her the wrong way. Amina grabbed her jacket and headed out the door, determined to find him. The walk to Mr. Carter's house was only a few blocks away. As Amina approached, she noticed the eerie stillness of the street. The Halloween decorations on the nearby homes seemed out of place in the quiet neighborhood. A chill ran down her spine. Was it just the fall air, or was something more sinister in the air? Mr. Carter's house was just as old as hers, maybe even older. It stood at the end of a long driveway, surrounded by overgrown trees. The front yard was filled with pumpkins and fake cobwebs, but the windows were dark, with no sign of life inside. Amina hesitated before walking up to the door. She knocked firmly, her heart pounding. She had no idea what she was going to say to him, but she knew she had to find out the truth. After a few moments, the door creaked open, revealing Mr. Carter. Looking as elderly and frail as ever, his eyes narrowed when he saw Amina standing there. "Ah, young lady," he said, his voice raspy. "What brings you here?" "I need to ask you about the house," Amina said, her voice steady despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. "The history of the house. Clara Hawthorne. I found her diary." Mr. Carter's expression shifted, just for a moment, into something unreadable, something darker. "You should go home, Amina," he said, his tone suddenly colder. "Some things are best left forgotten." Amina stood frozen at Mr. Carter's doorstep, her mind racing. She had expected some resistance, but not this, an icy coldness in his voice that sent a chill through her veins. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice firmer now, "I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth. Clara Hawthorne's diary, it's filled with warnings. You knew what happened to her. You know what's happening in that house." For a moment, Mr. Carter said nothing. His eyes were locked onto hers, and for the first time, Amina saw a flicker of something, fear, guilt. It was gone as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by an air of indifference. "You've been asking too many questions, young lady," Mr. Carter said, his voice low, almost threatening. "Some things are better left in the past. You've opened a door that you might not be able to close." Amina's heart pounded in her chest. He was hiding something. She was sure of it. "I don't care about the past. I care about what's happening now. My family is living in that house, and I can feel something watching us. Something's wrong. Clara's spirit. It's not at rest. It's still here. Why won't you tell me what you know?" The old man sighed deeply, as if the weight of her words had finally sunk in. He stepped aside and motioned for her to come in. "Come inside. We'll talk. But I warn you, Amina, once you know the truth, there's no turning back." With no other choice, Amina stepped over the threshold, her breath catching in her throat as the door creaked closed behind her. Mr. Carter led her into a dimly lit sitting room, its walls lined with dusty bookshelves and faded photographs. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and something else, something faintly metallic like blood. He gestured for her to sit, but Amina stood her ground. She needed answers, and she needed them now. Mr. Carter sank into an old armchair, his frail hands trembling as he clasped them together. "You're right," he said quietly, looking into the fire crackling in the hearth. "The house does have a history, a dark one." Amina leaned forward, her eyes never leaving his. "What happened to Clara? And what does it have to do with my family?" Mr. Carter paused, his eyes briefly flicking to the clock on the mantelpiece. He seemed to hesitate, as if weighing his options. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with regret. "Clara Hawthorne was a woman who was too trusting. She married Edward, a man who was charming and ambitious, but had his own demons. They bought the house together, thinking it would be their dream home. But the house, it has a dark energy. It preys on people's weaknesses, draws out their deepest fears." Amina sat down on the edge of the armchair, her breath shallow. "And Clara began to hear things, feel things that weren't there. At first, she thought it was just a house. Old houses creak and groan, after all. But then she found out about Edward's affair. She discovered he'd been meeting with a woman named Miriam Carter." "My sister," Mr. Carter said, his voice cracking slightly. Amina blinked in shock. "Your sister?" "Yes," Mr. Carter continued, his eyes growing distant. "Miriam was part of a group of people who had been tied to this house long before the Hawthornes moved in. They were part of a cult, a secret society that believed in the power of spirits. Spirits they could control, spirits they could bind to this house." Amina's heart raced. "You mean?" "Clara had no idea what she was dealing with," Mr. Carter said, shaking his head. "She confronted Edward. She found out about Miriam, but it was too late. The house already had a hold on them. Clara's discovery made her a target. She became obsessed with finding out more. She thought she could escape, but the house wouldn't let her." Amina felt the room closing around her, the air thick with fear. "What happened to her?" Mr. Carter's eyes darkened. "Clara tried to leave, but she never made it out. She was killed in the house, sacrificed to the spirits. Edward, he was part of it. He helped seal her fate." Amina's stomach churned as she pieced it all together. "You knew about this? And you rented the house to us, knowing what had happened to Clara?" "I didn't want to," Mr. Carter whispered, his voice full of remorse. "But the house calls to people. It chooses them. It makes them believe they're safe, makes them believe they can live here without consequence. But it's a lie. The house feeds on the living." Amina stood, her anger boiling over. Then why didn't you warn us? Why didn't you tell us the truth? I couldn't, Mr. Carter said, his voice breaking. Clara's spirit is still here. It's trapped in the house, just like everyone else who's ever lived here. The house feeds on betrayal. It keeps you here, keeps you in its grasp until it's too late. And now, it's targeting your family. Amina's mind reeled. Her father's secret dealings with Mr. Carter, his silence about the house's history. It all made sense now. Papa Kelechi had been hiding the truth, protecting them from the very thing that had claimed Clara's life. The spirit is calling to you, Amina, Mr. Carter said quietly. It's trying to warn you, but the house won't let you leave. Amina stood in the dimly lit room, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Betrayal, fear, anger. Her father had known. He had known everything and kept it from them, kept them in the dark, just as Clara had been. The weight of the truth settled heavily on her shoulders, suffocating her. Mr. Carter's words echoed in her ears, but they didn't bring comfort. The house feeds on betrayal. It keeps you here, keeps you in its grasp until it's too late. Clara's spirit was still trapped, and now, Amina feared it was calling for her next. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Amina finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Carter looked away, his gaze fixed on the fire that had grown dim. His hands trembled, and for the first time since she'd entered his home, Amina saw genuine fear in his eyes. I told you, it was too late for Clara. The house, it draws you in. You can't fight it. If you try, it takes something from you. Amina's thoughts raced as she processed his words. The house. It wasn't just a building, it was something alive. A presence, a force that preyed on people's darkest secrets. But why had it chosen her family? Why now? Clara's death wasn't the end, Mr. Carter continued, his voice ragged. It's never the end. The house won't let go of its victims. It makes sure they never leave, keeps them in limbo. It feeds on regret, on pain. And now, he trailed off, shaking his head. Amina's heart sank. And now it's targeting my family. My father, he's hiding something, isn't he? Mr. Carter's eyes flicked to the door, as if expecting someone to walk in. He lowered his voice, speaking in a hushed tone. Your father, he made a deal with the house. Years ago, he thought he could outsmart it. He thought he could control it by keeping the truth hidden. But the house doesn't let anyone go. It feeds on your guilt. That's why it's so quiet. It's been waiting for you to unravel the truth. Amina's breath caught in her throat. The betrayal, the lies, it was all coming together now. But her father hadn't just kept the truth from her. He had actively kept them all in the house, knowing what would happen. Papa Kelechi, he knew, she whispered, feeling the weight of the realization crash over her. Yes, Mr. Carter confirmed quietly. He knew the price of silence. He knew what would happen to Clara, and to anyone who came after her. But he never thought it would come to this. He thought he could protect you. Amina felt a surge of anger and heartbreak. Her father, the one person she had always trusted, had kept them in the dark. All this time, he had chosen to remain silent to protect himself, to protect them from something that would ultimately destroy them. The heavy silence hung between them, broken only by the crackling of the fire in the hearth. Amina's mind raced. What should she do? Could she confront her father now, or was it too late? Could she break free of the house's hold? You have to leave, Mr. Carter said suddenly, his voice sharp, before it's too late. You can't fight it by staying here. The house will keep taking from you. It will take everything, piece by piece, until you're as broken as Clara. But I can't just leave. Amina's voice cracked, the panic rising in her chest. My family is here. My father, I have to help him. You can't help him, Mr. Carter said firmly, his voice trembling. The house has already claimed him. The only way to stop it is to leave. You have to break the cycle. Amina, destroy whatever is holding this place together. Amina's heart pounded as she stood there, frozen in indecision. The house wasn't just haunted. It was alive, a force that fed off everything it touched. And her father had made the ultimate mistake by staying silent, by believing he could control it. But leaving meant abandoning her family. How could she do that? Where would we go? she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Mr. Carter's eyes softened, and for the first time, Amina saw a flicker of empathy. You don't need to worry about that. If you leave, you will be free. The house won't follow you. But if you stay, it will take you. That night, Amina lay awake in bed, staring up at the cracked ceiling. The darkness of the room was oppressive, almost suffocating, and the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. The house was alive, watching her every move. She could feel it, the presence, the weight of it pressing against her chest, making it hard to breathe. Her mind raced back to her father. What had he done? Why had he kept this secret from them for so long? And now, what was she supposed to do? The whisper came again, louder this time. Help me? Amina sat up, gasping for air. The voice. It wasn't just in her head. It was real. She could feel the presence of someone, something in the room with her. A shadow moved in the corner of the room, a figure taking shape in the dim light. Amina's heart skipped a beat as she saw it. Clara's face, pale and twisted in pain, her eyes wide with desperation. You have to stop him, Clara's voice echoed in the room. The truth must be told. Only then will we be free. Amina trembled, her body frozen with fear. Clara's spirit was trapped, and the house was still feeding on its victims. The truth, Amina realized, was the only way out. But could she confront her father, unearth the terrible secrets he had buried, and break the curse before it consumed them all? Amina's hands shook as she slowly slid out of bed. The whispering voice of Clara still echoed in her mind, urging her to confront her father, to finally uncover the secrets he had buried for so long. But the fear in her heart kept her rooted in place. What if it was too late? What if revealing the truth would only make things worse? She couldn't ignore it anymore. The house, the spirits, her father's silence, it was all connected. The truth had to be told. The first light of dawn crept through the curtains, casting an eerie glow on the room. Amina took a deep breath, steadying herself. It was time. She made her way downstairs, her footsteps heavy as she approached the kitchen. There, sitting at the table as if nothing was wrong, was her father. Papa Kelechi was sipping his coffee, the picture of calm, too calm. Amina stopped at the doorway, her heart pounding. Papa, she said, her voice shaky but determined. We need to talk. Her father looked up, his expression unreadable. What's going on, Amina? I told you to forget all this. It's just an old house. You're letting your imagination get the best of you. No, Amina replied, her voice firm now. It's not just an old house. I know what happened here. I know about Clara. I know what you did. Papa Kelechi's face paled. He set his cup down with a quiet clink, his hands trembling. Amina felt a sickening knot twist in her stomach. She had never seen him like this. The man who had always been strong and composed now looked like a shell of himself. Please, Amina said, her voice softening. Tell me the truth. Tell me everything. I found the diary. Papa, Clara's diary. She said you were part of it. You knew about the house, about the spirits, about what happened to her. You knew, and you didn't tell us. Her father didn't speak at first. He stared at her, his eyes filled with shame, guilt, and something darker, fear. Amina could feel the weight of the truth pressing down on him, and she could see the battle inside him. He didn't want to tell her. He didn't want to admit what he had done. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want you to know. I thought I could protect you, keep you safe from all of it. From what, Papa? Amina asked, her heart aching. From the truth? From the past that's haunting us all. He closed his eyes, his face creasing with age and regret. Clara was right. The house isn't just old. It's cursed. And I made a deal with Mr. Carter. I thought I could control it. Keep the house's evil from touching us. I didn't think it would drag us in like this. Amina's breath caught in her throat. A deal with Mr. Carter? She repeated, trying to make sense of what her father was saying. What kind of deal? Papa Kelechi's gaze dropped to the table, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. I was in financial trouble. Desperate, really. When we moved here, Mr. Carter offered me a way out. He promised me the house would be ours if I agreed to keep the history hidden, if I kept people from asking questions about it. He said the house could give me everything I wanted: money, power, a new life. But there was a price. Amina stepped forward, her pulse quickening. A price? What price, Papa? The house? The spirits, he muttered, his voice cracking. It feeds on betrayal. It makes you do things. It made me make a choice I shouldn't have. I thought if I kept quiet, if I ignored the past, it would all go away. But it's only gotten worse. It's all coming back for us. Amina! We can't escape it. Amina's mind reeled. Her father had made a deal with Mr. Carter, a deal that had bound him to the house, trapped him in its curse. The house had fed on his guilt, his silence, and now it was coming for her family. You knew about Clara, Amina whispered, her voice breaking. You knew she was killed. You knew her spirit was trapped in the house. Papa Kelechi nodded, his face pale. Yes, I knew. I knew that her death wasn't just an accident. The house, it takes everything from you. It takes your soul if you let it. But I didn't want you to know. I didn't want to lose you. Amina. Tears welled up in Amina's eyes as she took a step closer. You've already lost us, Papa. By keeping the truth from us, by letting us live in this house without knowing what it really is, you've already lost everything. For a moment, her father didn't respond. The silence between them was suffocating, as though the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to change. Amina wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. The house isn't just haunting us. It's waiting for us to make a choice. We have to stop it before it takes any more. Papa Kelechi's gaze flicked up, and for the first time, Amina saw something in his eyes that she hadn't seen before: desperation. Amina, what are you saying? We can't fight it. We can't go against it. It will destroy us. We're not going to let it destroy us, Amina said firmly, her voice steady. We're going to fight. We'll do whatever it takes to break the curse. But we need to confront it. We need to face the truth. Her father was silent for a long time, staring at her as if trying to find something. Hope, maybe, or forgiveness. Finally, he stood up, his movement slow, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his regrets. Tell me what to do, he said quietly. Amina nodded, feeling a new sense of determination take root inside her. We have to find out how to break the curse. We have to make sure Clara's spirit can finally rest. And we need to destroy whatever is keeping this house alive. Papa Kelechi looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and trust. Then let's do it. For Clara, for us. The air in the house had grown heavier in the days since Amina's confrontation with her father. A sense of urgency hung in the atmosphere, as though the house itself was aware that its secrets were about to be exposed. Amina, Papa Kelechi, and Mama Ifioma spent the following days trying to make sense of everything. They were no longer just tenants in an old house. They were caught in a web of deceit, betrayal, and supernatural forces they didn't fully understand. Amina had spent hours reading through Clara's diary, piecing together the fragments of the woman's life and death. It was clear now that Clara wasn't just a victim of her husband's betrayal. The house had taken her spirit, binding her to its cursed walls, just as it had done to others before her. The only way to free her was to break the house's hold, destroy the entity that fed on betrayal. But how? Amina had a terrifying thought. What if the ritual to destroy the curse was tied to the very source of the house's power? What if the only way to break the house's hold on them was to confront the dark force head-on, by unraveling the very deal Papa Kelechi had made with Mr. Carter? Papa, Amina said one evening, her voice determined, we need to go to Mr. Carter's house. We need answers. He's the key to everything, and we have to confront him before it's too late. Papa Kelechi's face grew pale at the mention of Mr. Carter's name. Amina, no, you don't understand. Mr. Carter isn't just a man. He's tied to this place. He's part of it. You can't trust him. But we have to try. Amina insisted. He's the one who made the deal with the house. He's the one who knows how to break it. And he's the only person who can tell us how to stop it before it consumes us all. Her father shook his head, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and regret. I've done enough. Amina, I've already let you down. You don't need to go down that path. There's nothing you can do now. The house, it has you. But it doesn't have to. Amina said firmly. We can still stop it. That night, after dinner, Amina couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The house was unnaturally still, and the air felt thick, as if it was waiting for something to happen. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a pull toward the basement, the place where she had never dared to go. Without saying a word, Amina grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and made her way to the basement door. Her father's warnings echoed in her mind, but she couldn't stop herself. Something told her the answers she needed were down there. The basement was cold, the air damp and musty. Amina's footsteps were muffled against the old wooden floor as she descended the stairs. The darkness seemed to swallow her, and she felt as though she was walking into the very heart of the house's evil. At the bottom of the stairs, Amina found herself in a long, narrow hallway lined with old storage crates and discarded furniture. The walls seemed to pulse, the shadows shifting around her as if the house itself was watching her every move. There, at the end of the hallway, was a door. It was unlike any other door in the house, solid, reinforced, and covered in strange, faded symbols. Amina's breath caught in her throat. This was it, the heart of the house, the place where the house's power was strongest. She approached the door slowly, her hand shaking as she reached for the handle. It creaked loudly as she pushed it open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. The room was filled with strange artifacts, candles, old books, and what looked like ritualistic tools scattered across the floor. Amina's heart raced as she stepped inside. She knew this place. She could feel it in her bones. This was where the house's dark power had been bound, and the ritual to break it was here, waiting for someone brave enough to confront it. She knelt down in front of a small altar, her eyes falling on an old, tattered book. The pages were worn, but Amina could still make out the words written in an ancient script. She opened it carefully, her fingers trembling as she traced the words with her fingertips. To break the bond that ties the spirit to the house, the blood must be spilled. The room seemed to grow colder, and Amina's breath caught in her throat. The words seemed to reverberate in the room, and she could feel a heavy presence, as if the house itself was aware of her discovery. Blood. It was always blood, wasn't it? Amina glanced back at the altar, where a small ceremonial knife lay, its blade gleaming faintly in the dim light. It was a weapon of sacrifice, meant to sever the bond between the living and the dead. Her heart hammered in her chest as the weight of what she had discovered settled over her. The only way to break the curse was to make a sacrifice. But who would pay the price? She turned, her eyes searching the dark room, but the whispers began again. They filled the room, the voice of Clara's spirit calling to her. The choice is yours, the voice echoed. The price must be paid. You cannot break the curse without sacrifice. Amina's mind raced. She couldn't make this choice. She couldn't sacrifice someone she loved. Just then, she heard a sound from behind her, a soft, desperate whisper. Amina, don't. She spun around, her heart leaping into her throat, but it was only her father. Papa Kelechi stood at the door, his face pale, his eyes filled with sorrow. You found it, didn't you? He whispered. Amina could only nod, the weight of the situation too much to bear. Papa, she said, her voice breaking. We have to stop it. The house. It's waiting for us to make a choice. But I don't know if I can. Papa Kelechi stepped forward, his face filled with determination. You don't have to do this alone. Amina, we can face it together. Amina looked at her father, and for the first time in days, she saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. They would face the house together. They would find a way to break the curse. The room was heavy with tension as Amina and her father stood before the altar, the old book open between them, its pages whispering dark secrets. Papa Kelechi's eyes, filled with both sorrow and resolve, met Amina's as they both stood on the precipice of something that could change everything. The house had made its demands clear. A sacrifice, a choice that would determine whether they would live free or remain trapped in the house's clutches forever. Amina had hoped, prayed even, that there would be another way, some other solution that didn't require blood. But the ancient book, with its cryptic instructions and ominous warnings, told her otherwise. They had found the knife, its blade gleaming with a cold, cruel promise. The only way to break the curse was for someone to pay the price. The spirits were restless, their whispers growing louder with every passing moment, urging her to act. "You don't have to do this, Amina," Papa Kalechi said, his voice soft, yet filled with an undercurrent of fear. "We can leave. We can still go. Maybe we can find a way out." Amina shook her head, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision. "No, Papa, the house won't let us leave. It's too late for that. It's been waiting for us to make this choice. We have to finish what we started." Her father's face crumpled in grief, the guilt of his own mistakes written clearly on his features. Amina had never seen him look so broken. "I never wanted this for you," he said, his voice cracking. "I never wanted you to be part of this. I thought I could protect you. But I've failed you." Amina stepped forward, her hand resting on his shoulder. "You didn't fail me, Papa. You made a mistake. We both did. But now we have to face it together." The air in the room grew colder, the shadows stretching longer across the walls, as if the house itself was reacting to their resolve. Amina turned her gaze back to the book, the words staring back at her like an unspoken curse. "The blood must be spilled to break the bond," she read aloud. "Only by the one who bears a curse can the bond be severed." A shiver ran down her spine as the meaning of the word sank in. The one who bore the curse. It wasn't just about making a sacrifice. It was about breaking the cycle of guilt and betrayal that had been set in motion years ago. Amina knew what she had to do. She glanced at her father, his face pale and filled with dread. "Papa," she said softly, "it's me? I have to do this." Papa Kalechi's eyes widened in horror. "Amina, no, you don't have to. I'm the one who found the truth. I'm the one who uncovered the curse." Amina interrupted, her voice steady. "The house is feeding on our guilt. It's feeding on the silence and the betrayal. I have to be the one to end it." Her father stepped forward, his hands trembling. "But you're my daughter. You're my only child. I can't lose you. Please." Amina looked at him, her heart breaking for the pain he carried. But deep inside, she knew it was the only way. If she didn't do this, the house would never let them go. They would be trapped here forever, bound to its curse. She couldn't let that happen. "I'm doing this for us," she said, her voice strong. "For you, for Mama Ifioma, for Clara." Papa Kalechi reached out and pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her as if it could protect her from the inevitable. "I'm so sorry, Amina. I'm so sorry for everything." "I love you, Papa," Amina whispered, her voice barely audible. The moment was heavy with finality. The house seemed to pulse around them, waiting for the inevitable sacrifice. Amina stood back, the knife now in her trembling hand. The ritual had to be completed. She knew what it would cost her. The spirit of Clara, the one who had suffered in silence, who had been betrayed and abandoned, was waiting for her to take this final step. She had heard Clara's voice, felt her presence in the walls, urging her to break the curse. The house had claimed Clara, but Amina was determined it wouldn't claim her family. With one last glance at her father, Amina took a deep breath and raised a knife. Her heart raced, the weight of the decision nearly suffocating her. The blade gleamed in the dim light, its cold surface reflecting the shadowed room. As she stood there, poised to end it, the whispering grew louder, urging her to act quickly. But then, something unexpected happened. The room seemed to shift. The shadows deepened, and Amina felt a pull, something powerful and unnatural, tugging at her soul. She staggered back, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The knife fell from her grip, clattering to the floor. "No!" she gasped, her breath coming in shallow bursts. "What's happening?" The whispers became a chant, a haunting rhythm that filled the room, a voice, clear and resonant, echoing through the walls. "You cannot break the bond with blood alone." Amina's heart stopped as she looked toward the corner of the room, where the shadows seemed to take form. A figure emerged from the darkness, a figure she recognized. It was Clara. Her face was pale and twisted with pain, her eyes wide and desperate. But there was something else in them now, something she hadn't seen before. Clara wasn't just a trapped spirit anymore. She was something else, something powerful. "You've done enough," Clara's voice whispered, echoing in Amina's mind. The price is not just blood. You have to choose between life and death. Amina's eyes filled with tears. What do I do? How do I stop it? Clara's face softened. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. You don't have to sacrifice anyone. You must break the cycle by choosing to forgive. To forgive, the one thing this house cannot bear. The room was heavy with the echoes of Clara's voice, the shadows swirling around Amina, as though the very house itself was alive and watching. Her heart hammered in her chest as she tried to make sense of Clara's words. Forgive? How could she forgive? How could she forgive the house that had stolen so much from her family? The whispers grew louder, swirling in a cacophony of voices. Clara's figure remained in the corner of the room, her expression both mournful and full of resolve. Her once pale face now glowed with an ethereal light, her eyes filled with a strange clarity. The air around Amina seemed to crackle with energy, as though something was about to change. You don't have to sacrifice yourself, Amina, Clara said again, her voice clear and steady. The power of the house is not in blood. It is in what you choose to do next. You must break the cycle of hatred, betrayal, and fear. You must choose forgiveness. Only then will the house's hold be broken. Amina's mind spun as she tried to process what Clara was saying. Forgiveness? Was that really the key? She had spent so much time focusing on the house's evil, the spirits, the sacrifices. How could forgiveness have any power over something so dark, so ancient? But then something shifted within her. She thought of her father, of the pain in his eyes when he confessed his secret to her. She thought of Clara, trapped and desperate, her spirit bound to the house by the betrayal she had suffered. She thought of the guilt, the silence that had built this house into the prison it had become. The house didn't just feed on blood. It fed on the unresolved, on the anger and the betrayal. Amina's hands trembled as she wiped the tears from her eyes. She looked at her father, standing motionless by the altar, his face drawn with exhaustion, regret, and guilt. He had made a choice, but it wasn't just his fault. They had all been swept up in this. They had all been part of the cycle. And now it was time to break it. Papa, she said, her voice shaking but determined. We have to forgive. All of us. We have to let go of the anger, the guilt. It's the only way. The house won't stop until we do. Her father looked at her, the weight of his past mistakes hanging heavily between them. For a long moment, he didn't speak, just stared at her with eyes that seemed to carry the burden of generations of silence and secrets. Then, slowly, Papa Kelechi nodded. You're right, he whispered. I've carried this guilt for so long. I thought it was my burden to bear alone, but it's been killing us all. I'm sorry, Amina. I'm so sorry. Amina felt a weight lift from her shoulders as she reached out, taking her father's hands in hers. The house seemed to hold its breath as they stood there, facing the past together. No more lies, no more secrets. They had made their choice. I forgive you, Papa, Amina said softly, her voice thick with emotion. I forgive you for the silence, for keeping us in the dark. We can start over. We don't have to be trapped by this anymore. The air around them seemed to tremble, and for a moment, everything went still. Amina could feel the house, feel it listening, waiting. She looked back at Clara, who nodded as though satisfied, her form slowly beginning to fade into the shadows. The whispers softened, becoming a distant hum. The temperature in the room began to rise, and the coldness that had pervaded the house for so long started to dissipate. The oppressive weight lifted, and the house no longer felt alive in the way it had before. It's over, Clara's voice echoed one last time, fading into silence. Amina looked at her father, a tear rolling down her cheek. It's over, Papa. The house, it's free now. Her father hugged her tightly, his voice breaking as he whispered, Thank you, Amina. You've saved us all. Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the darkened windows. The house, which had once seemed like a looming presence of evil, now felt like just another old building, a place full of memories, both good and bad, but no longer a prison. The house no longer had a hold on them. They were free. As they walked out into the early morning light, Amina felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in days. The curse had been broken, and the house was no longer a threat to her family. They had faced the darkness together, and together they had chosen the light. And in that moment, Amina realized that the greatest power they had was not in blood, not in sacrifice, but in the ability to forgive. The house's grip had been broken, not by violence or vengeance, but by love and understanding. The house might have claimed many before them, but it had failed to claim them. They had broken the cycle. And for the first time, Amina truly felt at peace.